So we'll move on then to our next film, which is Pig. Drew, what's that about?
Yes, I'm looking for a truffle pig. Someone stole it. A gruff-voiced Nicolas Cage tells us in the trailer for Pig. His pig was taken. Perhaps Nicolas Cage's Robin will turn out to be the sort of man who doesn't have money, but does have a very particular set of skills. Skills that he has acquired over a long career? Well, actually, yes, but absolutely not the sort of skills that the rather misleading trailer, which fortunately I didn't see until after watching the film, might lead you to expect. This week's Nicolas Cage vehicle is one of those that pleasantly reminds us all that, given the appropriate material and direction, Mr. Cage is really a very fine actor indeed. It can be easy to forget that. Unlike, say, Al Pacino, who around here we tend to measure on the decimal Scarface scale, trademark, Nicolas Cage's performances tend to reflect one of two settings. On, or all of the Nick Cage, or off, normal person. Here we very much get the off setting. Indeed, it's perhaps the most low-key performance I can remember seeing him give, spending most of the first act of the film barely even talking, and I'm very much here for it. As much fun as his more trademark maniacal turns in the likes of Mom and Dad or Mandy are, this is the Cage I've always preferred. Nicolas Cage the actor, not the human meme, seemingly intent on actually becoming the parody version of him created by Andy Samberg on Saturday Night Live. This acting happens in and around Portland in the northwest of the US, where Cage's Rob lives quietly and simply in the woods with his pet pig, selling the truffles that she finds to Alex Wolff's Amir, a Portland restaurant supplier and promoter, to provide him with a living. Violence enters Rob's quiet world, though, when he's attacked in the middle of the night and his pig stolen. A still bloodied Rob makes his way into the city to find the animal, enlisting Amir's help, as he journeys into the world of high-pressure haute cuisine with a seedy underbelly. This is a world that Rob was once part of, but left, and returning, he only partially recognises, though part of that may be due to the fact that Rob does not entirely recognise himself anymore. To mention more would be to risk spoiling this subdued and thoughtful piece, and its explorations of the effects of grief. I will just add some praise instead, in particular for Alex Wolff as Cage's unwilling associate and Patrick Scola's beautiful cinematography and its abundant use of natural light, or at least the effect thereof. Pig isn't flawless, the underground restaurant Fight Club seeming particularly odd, but it really is rather a wonderful little film, and an impressive debut from writer-director Michael Sarnowski. A low-key, non-sentimental character piece running to only 92 minutes, it's quite comfortably one of the best films I've seen all year. Very highly recommended.
Yes, I don't know if this was a pleasant surprise because I've heard good things about it. It's just, I suppose it's surprising to be, for that good things to be backed up by it actually being a good film at the end of the day. I'd say it's a timely reminder that Nick Cage can act if he wants to, but he chooses not to frequently. But here instead it's a very pleasantly low-key performance. It's of course, it has been a long time since I've seen him being this effective doing so little. Yeah, maybe even leaving Las Vegas or 9mm kind of time frame, or 9mm, 8mm, probably 8mm.
8mm.
Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of time frame. Yeah, a timely reminder that he's really one of cinema's national treasures. I mean, look, this is the same setup in the first 10, 15 minutes as Mandy had, but it's a very different film that comes after it, you know what I mean? Yeah, like it a lot. Like I say, I'm probably glad I didn't have to write up any notes for this, because, yeah, I don't think the script, in terms of its narrative, strictly speaking, would hold up to a lot of scrutiny. Like you say, the underground fight, hobo punching gang thing where the underworld boss also knows about the ins and outs of truffle pig stealing world or something. Yeah, there's a lot of sort of jumps of logic that if I had to analyse a bit more might actually kind of undermine the film as itself, but thankfully when you're watching it that kind of doesn't really enter into it. It's very good at kind of pulling you into this world, and it's a real testament to Nick Cage's performance as how much he can draw you into this character despite saying practically nothing for the entire film, and then just quietly destroying that chef in the restaurant with a few words.
Devastating scene.
Yeah, yeah. As a really powerful bit of character work. And as you say, that really is what I take away from this film. It's a lovely little character piece, tight, efficient, 90-minute use, and just very tactically deploys Nicolas Cage's talents in a way that is surprising if you've only seen the, as you say, the more memeable side of his career. But yeah, it's a tremendous piece of work, and I heartily enjoyed it. There's a lot of things to like in here, and very little to dislike. Yeah, I would certainly recommend this. It's by its nature a slightly strange setup, but I think one that would be heartily recommended to anyone who's, as I say, into film enough to listen to a film podcast. So yes, absolutely anyone that's listening to the sound of my voice should seek out Pig with the utmost urgency. It is really good indeed.
Yeah, it's just nice to be reminded that he can act. That was my biggest takeaway from it. I hadn't really forgotten, but it had been so long since I'd seen it.
Yeah.
Mandy, as I've said many times, is both the worst of things and best of things.
Yes.
And his performance is good in that, but it's still more on the
nuts side.
Yes, and it's like every single thing is shouted sort of way and everything's on fire type of performance as Andy Samberg had lampooned him about on Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
It's the actual, like, the leaps of the plot, they don't make a great deal of sense, but they more or less exist to get from one place to the other. And maybe there wasn't a good way to write, or the writer didn't really have the experience to do that well. But
ultimately, it didn't matter because
it's a way to get to the next very emotional and affecting scene. That scene with the chef, and it's like it's perhaps one of the best ever scenes I've seen that embody I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed.
Yes.
And Nick Cage just cuts that guy down without malice. And it's really nice. And instead, the first act, he barely talks at all. But it's not like one of those kind of mumblecore performances that you see every now and then. It's just quiet and reserved, like a man with a lot going on under the skin.
Yeah, the amount of detail you can discern about how he got to where he is just from the act of playing the start of a tape and then not playing the rest of it in a slumbering way, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Tremendous, both in terms of the acting performance and indeed the writing. Really
and
well done stuff.
Too, so it's really good. I almost did write when my notes that it was remarkably assured for a first time director, but then I remembered we talked about Reservoir Dogs that long ago. It's like actually doing a first time film really well isn't necessarily all that impressive. It's whether you can follow up with a second one, so I hope he can.
True.
But still, for first time and working with someone as Nick Cage, it's Nick Cage. As investment, I don't imagine Nick Cage's ever been one of those people like Jim Carrey, where to get any sort of decent performance, you have to have like Iron Will, I suspect, be able to rein him in. Mm-hmm. So the only time he's been tolerable is when he's not been Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case with Nick Cage, but still, for someone who's got no experience at all to take this walking meme and get this sort of performance out of him again, it's wonderful, and it's just nice to see that Cage back. So I'm looking forward to more of that.
Indeed, indeed.
Until then, this is just it's a wonderful film. So watch it now before next week's Nick Cage vehicle takes out of your mind.
Before Bangkok Dangerous 4, the reboot appears. Yeah.